Hello everyone and welcome to 27. Today we're going to be doing a quick and easy buyer's guide on Porsche 911 Carreras, the 3.2 era. I'm here with Philip Raby from Philip Raby Porsche. Philip is very knowledgeable. He was also the editor of Total 911 magazine for a long time, so he knows these inside out. First of all, we're going to be talking about model variations that you're going to be looking at when you're getting these. Secondly, we're going to be talking about the big one, which is the bodywork and rust issues, and where you should check out that side of things. And then lastly, we're going to talk about mechanicals and values. So Phil, over to you first of all. With regards to sort of variations during the model years, when was the car actually started? So when was it produced? How long was it produced for? And what variations, if any, were there during that time?
Okay, the 3.2 Carrera was introduced in 1984 and it remained in production until 1989. It evolved very slowly in that time. Very early cars were distinguished by the dashboard had smaller vents. Apart from that, it didn't really change much until 1987, when the big change was the traditional 915 gearbox was replaced by the all-new G50 gearbox. The G50 gearbox is a more modern, easier to use transmission, but you do lose the character of the old classic Porsche gearbox.
So the mechanical feel, is it not quite as mechanical and so on?
Yeah, it feels more like a modern gearbox. It was the gearbox which has actually evolved into the one used in the 996 and even the 997.
Oh really? Wow, that's incredible. So the 964 as well had the same G50, just sort of tweaked over time. Yes. Let's have a look at the bodywork. So what do we need to look out for?
Okay, well these guys have got galvanised body shells, which doesn't stop them rusting. So they will rust, so you need to check carefully, especially in this B pillar here. These early 911s didn't have a wheel arch liner, so mud gets thrown up and collects behind here, holds the moisture, and this panel here will rust away. And also the kidney bowl behind there will rust. The sills on each side, the inner sill and the outer sill, will rust. And it's quite a complicated body structure there. So if that starts corroding, you're looking at big money to get it put right properly. So check that very carefully.
Okay, great. Wheel arches?
Wheel arches, generally they're not too bad. You might get a bit of bubbling. But more, this area here can bubble up, and also around the lights.
Okay.
So if you see a bit of bubbling there, you check and see how extensive it is.
Okay.
Moving on to the front wings, they will rust around this seam, both the wing and the scuttle on the other side. When that happens, you've got to take the screen out, cut away the rusty metal, have it put right, and then repainted.
Okay, that's a classic 911 thing.
It certainly is, yeah. They all go around there.
Ones always go there. Okay.
And also, this bit behind here can rust, because that muck gets collected in there. And a little bit on this wheel arch sometimes. Also around here.
Around the filler?
Around the filler can rust, And this front edge here rusts away. And around the headlight and down in front of the headlight. When a wing goes, you're looking at £1,000 plus fitting plus paint.
Wow, yeah, so a big expense.
Yeah, so you need to check that carefully.
And in the front as well, what do we have to look at with that?
You will sometimes see rust on the inner wings, which is particularly bad. If that happens, you've got to think what's going on here. Okay. Because older 911s do, but 3.2s less so.
Shouldn't be going there. Okay.
Front bumpers are aluminium, so they will oxidize and bubble up.
Okay.
More of a cosmetic issue than anything. And stone chips on the bonnet and the front bumper, they're a cosmetic problem too. Okay,
Phil, let's talk about the mechanicals, starting with the engine.
Okay, these 3.2 engines are tough old units. They're generally very reliable. It's not unusual to get the odd little oil leak, but you don't want to see loads of oil pouring out of it. When you start the engine, you may get a little puff of black smoke at first because oil seeps into the cylinders on a flat six. But once you drive off and you've done a mile or so, that should clear. If it doesn't clear, the engine's burning oil and you've got a problem. The engine should settle to a nice idle, and just run quite smoothly without any rattles or tappity noises.
How much is an engine rebuild should you have to do it?
You can spend 8,000, 10,000, even more, depending on what you have done. So ideally, you want to get a car that's got a solid engine to start with.
Okay, Phil, and gearboxes?
Well, the 915 gearbox is a unit you have to treat with care. You have to ease it from gear to gear. And what tends to happen is people force it into gear, which will then damage the synchro meshes, and you get this downward spiral of damage. When you drive the car, it should go easily from one gear to the next, but you have to treat it gently and smoothly, especially when it's cold. If it doesn't, you've got a problem and the gearbox will need a rebuild. Okay. The later G50 gearbox is generally better in that respect, because it's an easier gearbox to use, but you can also get problems with synchro meshes on there. So do do try that carefully. The clutch pedal should feel light.
Yeah.
If the clutch is heavy, you may have a problem and you may need a new clutch.
What about interiors? What should we look out for on those?
Well, they're generally tough, but over the years they do get worn out. The seats can wear, the carpets can wear, and these door pockets can get all floppy and distorted.
Okay.
Don't think that it's an easy fix to tidy up a scruffy interior, because it's not. To get seats upholstered, reupholstered is not cheap.
Yeah.
A new set of carpets is about £800. Do look out for a car that's been well looked after and has got a tidy interior. Sometimes you find non-standard radios, you'll find wires hanging out under the dash where people have fiddled around with the wiring. Make sure the electric mirrors work. They often don't, and they can be a pain to sort out. Okay. And obviously make sure everything else works. The heating system in these cars is a bit of a mystery to most people. Yeah. There's a control between the seats, and when you turn that, you should be able to turn the heat up and down. Often that doesn't work, so do make sure that's working. You should get nice hot air out when you turn it up, and when you turn it off, you shouldn't get any hot air.
Okay. When you take it out for a drive, what should you be looking for?
We mentioned there's smoke from the exhaust. That's one thing to check. The gearbox should feel nice, the clutch should feel smooth, the engine should pull strongly from all gears. It's a big torquey engine, so you should have plenty of power. When you drive the car, there's no power steering, so at low speeds the steering will be heavy. When you're on the move, the steering should be beautifully fingertip light, like any 911. The suspension is surprisingly compliant on these cars. There shouldn't be any knocks, there shouldn't be any rattles. It should all feel good and solid.
Pretty solid, okay. And these cars use torsion beam rear suspension, don't
They've got torsion bar suspension front and back.
Front as well,
which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually quite a clever packaging solution for a car. But the dampers get tired over time. So often a new set of dampers will transform the way these cars handle.
Make all the difference.
Absolutely.
Okay, what about values? What are the sort of ranges that these go for?
Well, these days you'd be lucky to get anything for less than 35,000, and you could be a bit dodgy at that sort of price. Okay. So be aware of a bargain. You may find a cheap car, but then you could end up spending 10 grand on an engine rebuild. So it's far better to get something that's well sorted. This particular example is 45,000. It's had an engine rebuild. It's had everything done to it. And it's a lovely car to drive and to own.
What's the mileage on this one?
This has done 157,000. But don't let that put you off, because it's not about mileage. It's about condition. It's about the history of the car as well. So going up from there, you can pay £80,000 for a 3.2 Carrera, which will probably get you a low mileage, very original, pristine car. Okay,
but that's very much the top end.
Absolutely, yeah. You don't often see them for that sort of money.
Most of these cars have got more than 100,000 miles on them, and that shouldn't scare you, that shouldn't put you off. Always buy on condition, history and so on, rather than trying to find a low mileage car. Absolutely, these are cars that people have used. It's not like a Ferrari that people put in the garage and don't drive. These cars have been used over the years, so 100,000 miles is not unusual. Okay. And often you're better off getting a car that's done a few more miles and been looked after than a car that's been sitting in a garage for years and not touched. Well, thank you very much for your help, Phil. Hope this has been useful. We'll do a few more of these guides coming up, so keep an eye out. Please subscribe if you haven't, and see you for the next one.